My naked eye sees through your cloak of invisibility. I feel your melancholy soul on my melanin. I'm a nighthawk. My thoughts get deep in the night. I'm a passionate overthinker. I tell you my passions to comfort me. The best company is when you accompany me during my stride into the twilight with no ride as we wander through the air like a leaf gusting in the wind. The period after sundown is when it all had begun. The stroll allows me to take control, although I don't want to hold your hand. I want you to wrap your handful of vulnerabilities around my arm of solidarity. As you caress my strength, the energy rubs off on you, strengthening our connection, allowing me to explore your lands of unfamiliarity. Remarkably, after travels, you complimented my dexterity in being such a good listener and exhibiting such sincerity. I want you to marry me. The bells chime as it approaches the time to see the soon-be bride of mine. Clusters of bloodlines fill in lines and take their seat as you stride to the beat. Tears formulate as my mind reiterates our first meet. I recall a voiceless angel speaking to me, my mind attempting to comprehend what my eyes and this flag of attention at my mailbox have just confirmed. All rise. Do my eyes deceive me? The observation in my field of vision is a portrayal of make-believe. Out here in the field, vision is rare, but I had the same sight, so I set my sights on you. I just had to get your number before I go over my drink limit and they make me leave. I was smacked out of my flashback by fantasy's existence. And the vows are coming next. I'd be remiss if I missed it. Our fingers interlock our future together as I recite these vows to my love. You're an angelic antichrist in my heavenly delight, an anarchist and an arsonist blazing a trail of flames so bright they can't exhaust your light. But your illuminating luminescence, although effervescent, dims your essence. But we can learn from one another, which is why I yearn for your presence. You're a gift. If I had one wish, I'd wish that we could make it last forever. And to the end of time, as if time has no bounds, to the indefinite existence, persistent and immeasurable, consistent, unassisted, never resistant, never distant, never indifferent, never dismissive, bound of our love. You may now kiss the bride.
Hey, wonderful. Snap, 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 snap. Welcome, folks at home, to Speak Your Mind with Phil C. Alexander. Give it up, give it up, give it up for that incredible, incredible spoken word slam poetry. That would be...
So yeah, I do a little bit of slam poetry as well. That's not necessarily a piece I slam with. That's more so something I would do for a feature, but I do slam poetry as well.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, 'cause it like was on that border, you know, and like usually I can tell. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't with what the rules are. But I was like, I like it though because I like that it was spoken word and had that slam kind of like lean in edge. But then it also kept you guessing. Of course, you know, which I love.
Want to keep you on your toes.
Yes, exactly. So beautiful. So thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate you having me.
Today, and I'm going to ask you to tell the audience what inspires you the most in your work and your writing.
So what inspires me most in my work and in my writing has to be life. Life is going to be our biggest tool and our biggest resource. I feel like it inspires a lot of the work I do because when I go through things, I really don't have an outlet but to write about it. And that's generally what actually started me in doing poetry. When I was younger, I didn't have an outlet. I feel like I didn't have resources to speak to, so I used my pen to be my therapist, and, you know, paper was always there to listen for me, so.
Yeah, good. And so we have a writing challenge, of course, for folks at home. If you're a new writer or a seasoned writer, please join along, grab a pen, get your journal, and Phil or Philip?
Phil is fine.
I want to call you Luminescence, actually. I was like thinking as you were like spitting right there, I was like, okay, it's Luminescence. Is that your stage name?
Luminescence, that's nice. Okay, I like that.
I don't know, it just kept blaring out at me. So Luminescence.
Got the
Try
right
it out,
piece.
side by side.
Yeah.
Sent me this writing prompt. I love when our artists give me a writing prompt because it gets me out of my comfort zone and out of the box. So it is write about a time that you accidentally broke something. That's all the room we had to write, posted up on the CG. But it was like, write about a time you accidentally broke something, the consequences, what happened. Was there another thing there too?
So it was all of that. Basically what I did was I wrote a short story just talking about the time I broke something. So, yeah.
Nice. All right, I love it, I love it. So everyone at home, what I like to do, Go back to some of our earlier episodes if you want to do a brainstorm, just to warm up your creative brain. I walk you through it. We play some meditative music. So go back to, the first 5 episodes and you can follow along. We're not going to do that today, so I have more time to talk to the guests. But one thing I like to let everyone know about is if you set up your journal by numbering it 1 to 5, I say write a 5 to 10 line poem. So if you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the lines, if you go over, it's okay. I did 20, but usually once you get to 5, you're warmed up and you're gonna do more. But that's a way just to make it super easy for yourself. Then you could just think about it line by line by line. You don't have to take off on a whole narrative or think about what you want to talk about. You just go line by line. All right. So I saved the best for last.
Of course, thank you.
So I am going to I'm going to share mine first. Broke something.
Let's see.
How'd I know? How could I? Him standing so aloof. Wave your hands in the air, act like you just don't care. So I thought, trying desperately to get a rise out of him through coward verse, tucked away in brilliant disguised, veiled thin, still nothing. Glossed eyes over, wandering to more interesting conversation, adding fuel to my fire and justification to the story of he never did and wouldn't say that. His heart was broken.
I like that. I do very much so like that.
Thank you. And it's kind of had a theme with your opening piece, and I didn't know because I didn't know what you were going to do.
Everything comes full circle.
Yeah,
That's alignment
right?
right there. That's alignment. So the piece that I wrote is called Influence. Under the influence, he is fluent in peer pressure. 10th year of education, 15 years old in his fall semester. Sitting in class, he gets a text message that reads, "My mom is going to the liquor store before the party tonight. What should I tell her we need?" He's young, so all he really knows is Henny or Ciroc. Wearing an Adidas track jacket over a Hollister hoodie, gray sweats and Jordans over his socks. The only problem he's got is which one of his boys tonight can he get to cover? If not, as a teenage male, how does he translate to his mother that he wants to do what all the other kids do, which is party? He can't find the words to explain everything will be just fine because just like the words, his mom will think he lost his mind, so he tries to justify it with it'll just be this one time. Not worried about the consequences. He thinks the sequences of cons will never outweigh the memories of greatness he's constantly thinking. Should he break it? The bond between mother and son, the sun sets, day breaks, night comes. He can feel his heart digesting en route to his stomach. Mind running like it's being chased by the Temple Run monkey, but what is it evading? I guess it's scared of creating a setting that involves living the best night of your life but forgetting all the most important details. Slugging back shots like a snail, hazy vision like a dizzy spell. Can't tell you what he had for lunch, but it looks like a pile of oatmeal. Oh, brother. His boy tells him that his father says he can't stay the night anymore, so he can't cover. He has no option but to call his mother and ask her to pick him up. But there's a red Solo cup he's throwing up. His movements look like when Mary J. Blige and Little Kim link up. His words sound like he has a speech impediment. That Henny and Ciroc on a 15-year-old stomach is unsettling, but you know the motto, Drake's song. It was all kumbayas and sing-alongs until his ride pulls up and realizes all the trust is gone.
Wow, nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, deep thinker.
Yeah, thank you. I
You're a
appreciate
deep
that.
thinker. Yeah, and I love that we both kind of did something a little out of the box.
So that was actually the first time I feel like I broke my mother's trust. I was in high school as a freshman, and she had to pick me up from a party. I was a little bit inebriated, so I wanted to bring that to the poetry. Yeah.
I love that because, all right, so there's two things. So for folks at home who are getting inspiration, and I hope you're inspired right now, you definitely are, because there are different levels and layers of writing. There's just the sort of literal. And start there with the literal. You know what? I broke my sister's piggy bank, and I got punished, or I had to buy a new one. You know, then there's the out of the box of, all right, what's ethereal? What did we break that's ethereal? You know, and then there's that added layer of a purse bringing in a personal story, which is always great. And I like all different approaches, whether it's fiction or a personal story is awesome. But I I didn't know that was a personal story.
Gotcha.
You know? So
Yeah.
at first you're like, oh, okay, like you can kind of like play this out as a movie and see that. And then here's also a personal story. It's like, whoa, that's really, really deep.
So yeah, it's really my story. That's my life right there.
Wow.
Something I experienced, and when I saw the prompt, that was the first thing that came to my mind was broken trust. And I was trying to think back to when was one of the first times I could remember breaking someone's trust. And that first person I remember it being was my mother. So
Yeah.
it inspired that piece right there.
Yeah. Wait, and when you first sent it to, I was like, okay, well, first I did the literal. I'm like, okay, what did I break? There was a consequence, and then this just kept coming to me because I hadn't really thought about it that way before, because you know I'm a woman, and like most women, we want to paint the man out to be the bad guy, you know. So it's like, no, I didn't break his heart. No, he broke my heart. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so I was sitting with it, and I'm like, and it just kept nagging me. It kept nagging me. I'm like, all right, well, now I get to use this as an opportunity to sort of explore that a little bit deeper. And I'm going to write more on it.
Okay.
I wanted to keep it short just for the folks at home who are just starting out, just so they don't, you know, and I knew you were going to bring it.
Definitely.
So I'm like to give them, like I said, different layers, different levels, a template, exactly. But it was definitely one that made me think a little bit deeper about my role in relationships. And like I said, I love that it was in line with your opening piece about like the marriage and you know, and it's a way to do a love poem, I think, in a way that's a little bit different than sort of the typical. So thank you for that.
You know, no problem at all.
Yeah.
And the reason why I actually chose that piece is because recently I've been doing, I recently got ordained as a minister. So I'm able to do weddings. So I have a poetry wedding package where I'm able to come. I do a custom poem for you. I ordain you and your spouse at the wedding. And then I also give you that custom piece and a keepsafe. So
Sync.
Yes.
You're totally meant to be here on Speak Your Mind.
Yes,
Wow,
Speak Your Mind.
It's a special moment here, and all that lines up. So that's awesome. If you want to get married by him, you can. Where do we find you on?
So you can find me on social media. I'm right on Instagram, Phil C. Alexander _, or you can email me directly at philcpoetry. philcpoetry@gmail.com.
Luminescence.
Luminescence. I have to write a piece called Luminescence now.
Or that could be like your, I don't know, clothing line or your
that could be something.
I don't know. Something.
It seems like the topic today,
You just
though.
seem luminescence to
Gotcha.
me.
Yeah, I like it though. It fits. It definitely fits.
Well, it was so interesting because, you know, when we were just talking before the show, you know, I had thought I had known you from back in the day, but actually I was like, well, no, I remember seeing you a couple years ago, and I think it was about 3 years ago at Poets Realm.
At Poets Realm, yep.
Yeah, and I remember you kind of like a shy guy, just sort of reading, and I wasn't, in my memory, I'm like, was that him? Was that not? Should I ask him? But I wanted to wait to have the conversation on the air here. But it was like, it seemed like you went from this sort of being like this shy guy and like maybe just 1 or 2, 3 maybe Poets Rounds, and then all of a sudden, like, take off.
Yeah, so generally, I started off, we had a poetry collective that I actually used to I was a founder in it. It was called Gang Poetry, which stood for Gaining Attention Nonstop Globally. And we used to host poetry events out of 955 Connecticut Ave in Bridgeport at the Bridgeport Innovation Center. And I remember we had our first show, and we had 25 seats. We went and rented chairs. We had to build our own stage. And we thought 25 was such a big number. And we ended up getting maybe like 26, 30 people, and we were so excited.
Wow.
Fast forward a year later, we ended up doing the Bijou Theater and sold it out twice. I believe it was 200 plus people at that show. So that was like our biggest accomplishment. But in the course of that, I was also at Poets Realm, and I was just trying to get my name out there and the whole reason I started Gang Poetry was because I didn't know any poets in the area. I was the only poet that I knew in Bridgeport. So going to Poets Realm, doing Gang Poetry and starting to get that exposure, I was able to meet other individuals that were like-minded, and I realized, you know, I'm not the only person out here that has a passion for this.
Yeah.
So it just made me want to keep going. It was very inspiring.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, was it something that the fire was just always there, and it just the top came off?
So there was a handful of people that knew I did poetry, maybe about 4 or 5 people, and people were like, you should go and do this for a crowd, or you should start something. And I just was like, you know, it's not necessarily something I want to do. I do it because I'm passionate about it, but I feel like once I start performing it for people, I'm going to lose that passion. I'm going to lose that same love I have for it. But once I started it, you know, everything was just up from there. Every gang poetry we had going forward, I tried to bring out another 2 or 3 poems every time I went on stage, and it just kept me writing. You know, it kept me very inspired being around people that wanted that same vision, you know, just to grow as poets.
Yeah, and I think it's cool too because you don't usually see that. Like I said, usually it's like a slow trajectory of like getting comfortable. And even myself, I feel like, you know, I kind of take 5 steps forward and a couple steps back, and like I'm always, you know, kind of fighting against my own boundaries. You know, so to see someone who's like, was like, almost like green, like a newbie, and then just to be like, ooh, I was like, what was he hiding that? Was he hiding that? Or was it just like a new thing? And again, I think it's inspiring too, that story, because how many people out there right now, you know what I mean, kind of like maybe they did it once and they were a little shy or a little intimidated and think, oh, I'm not going to do it again. You know, like literally, like I said, it was like, you said a year, but it felt like it was like by the 3rd time I saw you, you were like this guy. You know? You know?
Yeah, I feel like it definitely did move fast. I just submerged myself in uncomfortability because I knew that would lead to growth. I started to bring myself to spots out of town. I went up to Mass and performed at open mics. I went up to slams. I would go up to New York and just put myself in experiences where I know if I put myself in this situation, either it's going to break me or it's going to make me better, but regardless, I'm going to come out stronger because of it. So, you know, I just feel like when you submerge yourself into a culture, I started to become a better version of myself, and I started to learn more about myself, and I have poetry to thank for that.
And so what kind of like spots, hot spots? So for people at home, like, and I would, you know, maybe if you can give us like an idea from the real high end for like the kind of like, you know, seasoned, you know, poets, spoken word poets out there, and maybe something that's a little softer for someone who's a little bit more intimidated.
Gotcha.
Like just from your experience, your walk of life, like where would you like shoot people to go?
Of course. So if you're local in Connecticut, I'm definitely going to suggest going to Poets Realm. I believe that's the 1st and last Wednesday of every month. There's also Free to Spit in New Haven.
That's Free to Spit.
Yeah, I'm not too sure when the dates are for that, but I know Free to Spit is a great event. But if you're looking for something a little bit bigger, they do have Voices in Power. Voices in Power has a location.
Yeah, what is that? I see that on Instagram all the time.
So Voices in Power,
that?
They have a location in Brooklyn as well as Philly. And it's like an open mic, but I believe it's first come, first serve. So you have to wait in line, and it's like a lottery style. So you put your name on a list, they pick it out of a hat, and then, you know, if you're picked, I believe you're able to go up on stage that day.
Oh, wow.
There's also Right About Now Poetry, which is based out of Texas. I don't believe that's an open mic. You have to be featured to be on that.
Okay.
And then the last one I could think of is Poetry Me Please. So they do host.
What is it called?
Poetry Me Please.
Poetry Me Please. I like that.
That's ran by Rashad Brown, I want to say his name is. So Poetry Me Please, they do a lot of features. They did host a slam. So their first annual slam they hosted was actually at the Cutting Room, just outside of Times Square in New York. And I went.
Yeah.
And that was my second slam ever, and I ended up coming in second place. So
nice.
It was a good time. So the first annual slam, I came in second place, but it was a great, humbling experience. Nice. I was able to see a different caliber of poets, and it just told me that, well, it taught me that I had to increase my pen and start to expand on topics, and not just always talk about the same thing.
Now, so, you know, for with slam, because I know there's some slam poets who just do slam. Yeah. And I appreciate that you do the spoken word and the slam. And a lot of, you know, the folks that come through Poets Realm, you know, bathe in both.
Yeah.
I like that because I like variety. You know, I do a bunch of different types. I do lyrical poetry, I do essays, I do all sorts of stuff. But do you find that there is a pressure in the slam world to just slam and just slam?
So not necessarily to just slam, but I do find myself sometimes being a little bit pigeonholed by slam, just because there is a scoring system to it, so it's a little bit more competitive than just going to an open mic or a feature where you're going to just, you know, relate to the crowd, give them raw emotions. A slam is more so you have to be strategic. If somebody goes up and does a piece before you, and that piece doesn't go over the way you think it should have, and you have a piece that may be better, you can go up and do that piece. So like, there's more of a strategy to slam as opposed to feature and open mics is just you're going out there and just giving people your raw, true emotions.
Do you feel like, wait, what's my time? Sorry, I didn't see you. See you back there. Folks in the back. What's my time? Can I still talk to him a little bit? Yes. Awesome. All right, good. Yeah. Sometimes I tend to talk,
no problem at all.
And they have to be like, oh, you guys all just have to come back on so we could talk about more, you know. And it's funny because when I first started the show, I was like, what am I going to talk about? And then it just goes.
It'll just flow.
It just flow. Yeah. It just flow. But it's nice, you know, especially talking to people who I've known and I don't get to see a lot. So it's like I get to kind of sit down and actually, like, you know, hear about, you know, where you came from and how you got where you got to go. And so back to the slam thing, though, do you think, though, that people want you just to start to let go of the spoken word and just do the slam. I think maybe that's my fear.
Okay.
You know, not that I ever really think I would be good at slam, but like every now and then I'm like, I'd love to just sort of write one and try it out and see. But I kind of like feel very intimidated because I feel like it's like once you enter that world, it's like, no, you have to leave everything else behind and you have to just do the slam dance and that's it.
And it's crazy you say that, because when I actually immersed myself into the slam world, that's how I felt. I felt like I had to leave everything else behind. I had to write specifically for slam, but you know, I try to just diversify myself and do a little bit of everything. I just write what I feel, and some of those pieces, you can't necessarily write a slam piece. You can write a piece and use it for a slam, but I don't try to write slam poetry. Right. I'll write pieces and it just translates well into slam, because I realized when I was trying to write slam poetry, I couldn't write it all. You know, I hit a wall. There was a lot of writer's block because I was like, this isn't gonna be relayed well. This isn't gonna get a good score. And it's like, when you get out of your head, or when you get in your head and think about too much, you can't write anything. So
yeah.
I just had to take a step back, breathe a little bit, and remember why I love poetry to begin with. And I never wanted to be classified as a slam poet, but a poet that does slam. You know?
Right. So, and that's why I love like the genre of spoken word, because it's literally everything. I'm like, the only thing that makes me and some people have, you know, definitions, but I'm like, no, it's words spoken. The only thing that makes my poetry different than if you go and have a sit-down person is my poetry, I like to present it. Gotcha. That's the only thing. But I could be reading something very lyrical and I still consider it spoken word. Okay. You know? So for all of our beautiful people out there, I want you to also maybe share with them, be a little bit of a mentor, what tips that you have, especially for the people who maybe are a little intimidated about writing, to get over some of those writer blocks, or to keep on going, or to like figure out what is in their heart and get it out to paper. So what tips?
Tips I can give you is spend time with yourself. Explore the world, explore life, figure out what you like and what you don't like, and through that you'll be able to get an idea of what to write about. I try not to write about things that I've never experienced. I try to write from my own experience, from my own perspective. And as far as getting on stage and performing with confidence, you just have to know that you're powerful. You have to know that your greatness comes from inside, and nobody can create it for you because it's already in you. You just have to activate it and know that every time you touch that stage, you're doing it with a purpose.
And you are a living example of that. So proud of you, so great. And you're gonna do another piece for us?
One more piece for you, yep.
Awesome. Yep. So folks at home, stick around for Philip C. Alexander Luminescence, as I'm gonna call him, because he's going to spit, share, speak some more of his wonderful poetry. And you can find us on channel 192. You can also go to Facebook. I have a Facebook group, Speak Your Mind, and look for us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share, and don't go anywhere.
I'm from a place where minds have been tricked that temperatures never climb, so everybody keeps the heat. Strapped with cold cuts that'll Swiss cheese you over some beef or butcher knife just to slice through the cheddar. It doesn't make it any better that we're trapped in a Macintosh, lost in the files of a corrupt hard drive they labeled the hood. I wish I could backspace out of this place. There's too many deletes. The glass is one-sided, no face, no case, never had a taste of freedom. Screaming free them at the top of my lungs. A headline on a newspaper calls them thugs when the only choice they gave those thugs was an environment where the best references could get you a job selling drugs. What if I told you that the neighborhood pharmacist needs a therapist? Nobody talks about it because nobody wants to talk it out. Everybody running from their problems when in the early 2000s, we could just walk it out. In the 90s, they stomped us out, hypnotized that we were the public enemy, drinking 2 40s a day, telling them the pain they killed Martin in the 60s, so by the 70s, we had nothing to march about. Nobody cares about the impact. This is not the type of opposition where you can go and get your lick back. This is a 10 p.m. reminder to always know where your kids are at, because bullets don't have no names. Shooters with no aim, pulling up from distance, armed with no shame, so they don't care about missing. Nobody will miss them. Black bodies become magnets at the end of a Smith & Wesson. The P in that phrase ain't for protection, it's for privilege. They say to raise one child, it takes a whole village, but they're unwilling to see our human side. We were classified as property. If I'm an animal, I'm a lion, and I don't see nobody stopping me with a flash, a deer in headlights, lipstick on an open wound. I'm not a coon, but I've seen people give more respect to a raccoon. You may be turned off, by my dark skin, but you can't turn off my dark skin because you've never seen melanin so bright. Like Boosie said, I'm on. So wipe me down. Take the weight of the world off my shoulders. This body is borrowed, so even if I go, you can never take the soul out my chest. This is for the black mothers that wear the pants in the family, because all the fathers that left didn't leave any shoes to fill, but used their stimulus to stimulate their old-fashioned American fetish for foreign goods. As the inner city wind blows the sense of European luxuries into a crime-ridden land where success is forbidden, feelings are hidden, and faces are hardened like stone because they've adapted to their rocky bottom, we can't seem to turn down the volume of the Led Zeppelin because the heavy metal is eclectic, so we turn up. My footprints turn into mud in the sand. The concrete sinks in as I ask them what are the options for the predetermined life of a black man. Peace.